Hodgie, we did touch on West Coast. Did you get everything out that you needed to say on them before we move on? Because it has been done to death a little bit today, but I feel like the story is only just beginning.
Yeah, I think it's been like this the whole season, hasn't it? The performance that they put on the weekend, I think Sydney had 77 inside 50s. They had 43 more inside 50s than West Coast. It just, as you've said, it's been spoken about today. It's been spoken about the last month, the last 2 months. The football they're putting out is not AFL standard, and you sort of feel for the teams that are pushing for that spot 6, 7, 8. The teams who get to play West Coast twice, well, they're in pretty good position.
Yeah, it is. It's a big advantage.
It's distorted the competition, and that's the disaster of the whole thing.
Yeah. What did we learn?
Well, I was never a big one for like a playoff to get into it, like they do in the NFL.
Yep.
But when you come in and play against a team like West Coast, who it's clearly an extra win for whoever's going to play against them. That's where you I'm sort of changing my mind about playing into the finals.
Yeah, this is the year if you're ever going to have a wild card. So you would have, as it sits now, you'd have the Western Bulldogs playing Gold Coast and Adelaide playing Geelong for the right to actually qualify for the finals. Everyone else has a week off that has qualified. And then you probably get the best teams that deserve to be in 8th and 7th position, because we're probably not going to get that at the end of this year with that inequity in the draw. Hodgie, what did we learn yesterday at the MCG? What did you take a positive lens from it from a Collingwood perspective, or did you walk away going, gee, they're gettable?
Yeah, I think if you watch them against Melbourne as well, they're definitely gettable, but they're a team that are just resilient. They're a team that doesn't matter what the score is. You know that they're going to continue to fight. They're going to continue to take risks with the ball. Their energetic ball movement is good to watch. Like it is something that's enjoyable out of all the games that were on the weekend. That was the highlight of the round. But also it shows a little bit about Adelaide. Adelaide are up for a fight as well. I've watched them a few times this year and been very impressed at the football they can play as well.
What do you think, Gerard?
I think what Hodgie said is right. The one story that I think is undersold with the Pies is Mason Cox. And I continue to be frustrated that he copped so much criticism as a player 5 or 6, 7 years ago when he came through. But he's one of the great success stories. He was pretty good with Bucks. Probably didn't work hard enough. But they've found a way to make him a seriously important player in their unit.
Probably...
system.
Important spiritually as well. Like
he was up for grabs not that long ago too.
Absolutely
he was on the open market, so they're working on a deal at the moment. But he's definitely going to be re-signed. You imagine another 1 year.
But he was a ruckman available to go. Now they're not playing him as total ruckman. They're playing him as a forward ruck, which is a fantastic opportunity. But he's such a great kick.
Yeah,
he embarrasses those boys that are grown up in this country.
Yeah.
That's a long way from that hand all the way down to his shoe as well. Some breaking news out of this game. So as we touched on off the top, Ben Keys, it is a misconduct fine for him for ripping off Coxie's goggles. Gerard, $1,500 sanction, $1,000 with the early plea, so no surprise there.
All right, let's start in that game with observation number 1 from the round. The last time Adelaide lost to Collingwood, I questioned Taylor Walker's performance in big games. It was good to see him impact in a big win away from home against very good opposition. He kicked 5 in the second half. So I've got to say and give credit where credit is due for his performance yesterday at the MCG. I gave him a vote on AFL Nation. I was like, how's he going at half time? But then he sort of, I reckon they let him in a little bit, Hodgie, though. Like they just gave him an inch and he took a mile. And the second goal that he kicked from Riley O'Brien, wasn't it, where he ran around and that got him involved. Like, you just got to be so switched on. How did you see the big fella's performance? And is he in All-Australian form?
He's such a beautiful kick of the football. You know that he doesn't need many opportunities to really hurt you. And you just spoke about Coxie and his kicking, Gerard, but he's someone who can sit back and, you know, if it's within 55 that wherever it is on the floor or whatever it is on the field, that it's more than capable of going through. It's
left and right
kick of the football.
Observation number 2, has Ben King gone past Max King? Max is a very frustrated player at the moment, I've noticed. Now, early days, 5 games back, I think it is, from that shoulder injury. 1 effective kick, no marks under the roof on Friday night. I reckon he gave away more free kicks than he had effective kicks.
Lucky not to be suspended.
Frustrating night for him. Ben's kicked 31-13 from his 13 games, 14 contested marks, 30 marks inside 50. Max has got 13-6 from his 5 games and 9 contested marks. It is a watch. I'm really liking the season that Benny's putting together, and Max has had a really flat couple of weeks.
In fairness, the ball hardly got to him.
Yes.
When you got Harris Andrews taking 9 intercept marks, it would have been frustrating. If you're playing fullback on Jack Payne, Ben, I reckon, would like himself in that. Max would like himself in that matchup, but the ball just didn't get a chance to get to him, or in space. Whenever they did, it was either held up slow ball movement, or else Harris Andrews intercepted it. So I can understand why he did get frustrated. But you're right, he's very lucky he didn't get hit him properly.
Still not allowed to give away free kicks, though. Like, it was an undisciplined push in the back to whoever was playing on him, and then to throw the punch, even though it may have been a temporary spoil. He's lucky he just missed.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's 2 weeks.
Observation number 3, Andrew McLeod, Darren Jarman, Eddie Betts, Scott Thompson, Jordan Dawson. Goes into the top 5 list of Adelaide's recruits. Early days, I know, but for a short period of time, the impact that this guy's having, now captain of the footy club, 35, 5 clearances, 10 inside 50s, 12 tackles and 9 score involvements. And Hodge, you reckon he should have been having a shot after the siren to kick the winner for them again?
Yeah, well, he got hit in the face. I think it was plain and simple. And we're not saying the umpire made a mistake. He didn't see it. It happened very quickly, but it was pretty clear that he did get hit high. But the umpire missed it, even though who was the Adelaide player who did raise it and said he had blood coming from his lip? Was it
Riley O'Brien?
O'Brien. I thought that was a nice little 1-2 from him. But look, that happens in football. Sometimes they get called, sometimes they don't. But it was an issue that was in a pretty important part of the game.
Is that the right order, Gerard? McLeod won in terms of Adelaide's recruits, and I know it's
remember
different.
the story about McLeod was he was training in board shorts for the Fremantle Dockers. Yep.
So if you got him in front of Darren Jarman, I think you probably would.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, that's tough.
No, you probably have.
Andrew McLeod.
You got 2 Norm Smiths versus Darren Jarman,
and he's
who won the one flag, just the centre forward role.
McLeod's arguably their greatest ever player.
Yep.
Like, he's in the top 2. It's him or Rashuda.
Yep.
I would think. So he has to be one. And then Eddie Betts. No
at
arguments.
2.
At 3.
At 3, yep.
Scotty Thompson was a very great...
For a long time.
Was a good pick-up. 300 game, a consistent performer. And then Jordan Dawson.
Dawson might knock a few of them off.
Crows fans, have you say, did I get the right order? 043390 11 16, Hodgie?
It's been a great first year, hasn't it?
He's done nothing wrong. For a bloke who came in, and then to make him captain into the start of his second year at the football club, I sat back and thought, geez, they're either struggling for leaders, or this bloke must have put his hand up or did something that we can't see from afar. But I'll tell you what, they've made the right decision. What he does on the football field with the ball, but more importantly without the ball as well, set a really good example for those younger players.
Kane, the accepted wisdom is there was nothing Sydney could have done to keep him, that the family wanted to go home. And yet I read in the newspaper on the weekend that he was keen to play midfield. I mean, if you added that big body to the Swans midfield and put Aliir at centre-half back, it's
be handy, wouldn't it?
It's a fairly quick transition.
Don't know if that... And this is the recruiting masterclass of it, and then the genius behind it. They've gone, okay, well, we're going to pay him a lot, and Sydney couldn't match. So I'm assuming he's on 700,000 to 800,000. That's a big check. And when you chuck in the rest of Sydney's star players that need to be paid, they couldn't afford it. Adelaide have gone, we've got room. We think he can get here, and we identify that, and we'll pay him maybe 200,000 more than he's worth in his first year, but we'll get that back, and that's
a question
exactly
of how you rate him. Maybe the Swans didn't see
Jordan Dawson. He was third in their best and fairest. Yeah, so they clearly rated him highly.
Yes, they did, and they thought they did everything to keep him. But if it became an extra 200,000, then that could have impacted on other people that stayed.
Yep.
But you wouldn't have done it unless you knew, or unless you thought he could go into the middle and become the player that Adelaide clearly thought he did.
Have a think about this, the three of you, that we've all got a player in the league that we love, and a lesser light that we love. So, Sammy, I'll get your lesser light that you love. Hodgie, have a think about that, and Gerard, you can have a think about maybe those underrated players that you just really enjoy watching that maybe don't get the plaudits they deserve. For me, it's Will Power at the Gold Coast. So I just think we don't talk about him enough. Watching him yesterday, some of his off-ball running, and I have a look at it on Classified tonight, the defensive work that he does, he puts in every time defensively, and then when he gets the footy, he's really damaging as well. So he had 17 kicks yesterday, took 12 marks, 4 of those were intercept marks, and a couple of defensive efforts were great. So, Sammy, you've got an underrated player. I got another one as well, just what you think. Lockie Schultz from Freo.
Oh, absolutely.
I know you like him.
Yeah, no, I've been on his wagon for many years.
You know what draft pick he was? 57, Gerard.
But they're the ones. They're the ones that turn you from an ordinary side into a good side. If you can match them up, you should not get your first and second rounders right.
Yep.
Wrong. But if you can nail the 50s, then you're on fire. I mean, Chad Warner was a 39. That's a good draft pick, because if you redid it, he'd be in the top 5 in that particular one. I got another one who was about a 25. underrated, good pick, row bottom.
Yes. He's younger than I thought.
Yeah, he's only 22 or thereabouts. Third in the best and fairest last year. Does a job. He turns up every week, and he's a hard player.
That is a good selection.
He's a good get.
Hodgie, you got one for me?
Braden Maynard.
Yes.
He's someone who aggression, had high 20s on the weekend. Nice kick, but he sets the tone for that team. He'll go after the opposition players, but I don't reckon he gets, because he's got so many good players in and around him at the Collingwood Football Club. I feel that he doesn't get spoken about as much as what he probably should.
And
after
after
he does for that side.
Sammy Edmund has done 7 hours on air today, he's just still coming up with
I've got one.
Oh, you got
I'm
one?
waiting patiently here. My guy plays at the Geelong Footy Club. He's 71 kilos, but I reckon he plays like he's 91 kilos. And his name's Brad Close.
Good selection.
And he was taken in the 2019 rookie draft. He's a coach favourite. He plays every week. He's starting to get a bit more credit. Geez, every time he goes near the ball, he makes the right decision.
Good decision maker.
He puts his body in the way of heavy traffic. He's hard, he's tough, he's quick. Can't fault him.
Glenelg boy too, he's a ripper. I like all of your selections. If you've got one for us, let us know. 0433 98 11 16. Let's stay on the Cats with observation number 5. Tanner Bruin for pick 18 was a steal. Building very, very nicely in his career, and probably being forced to do that with the opportunities he's got inside with the injuries that are out. But I thought he was big time on Thursday night. That was a shrewd pick up. He was picked 12 initially to the Giants. The Cats got him for 18, which I think is a steal.
Double-sided player.
Yeah.
Did you see that left footer he penetrated with?
And he's tough, I reckon. Like, he's tougher than I thought.
He couldn't get a game of the Giants, so it was a good decision to move.
Observation number 6. Let's hear from Damien Hardwick on the Dylan Friends podcast.
I'd be lying if I said I couldn't see myself doing it. I love it. I miss it. I've been out for 2 weeks, and I wanted to miss it, if that made sense.
Yeah, a little bit flat, Hodgie, if I was Richmond listening to that. 4 weeks, and it feels like the burnout is gone. He's ready to go again. He's bored. Should they not have just sat down and discussed perhaps giving him 4 weeks off and then revisiting this again?
They would have had that many decisions behind closed doors between Brendan and himself, and the passion. I got no doubt that the stuff that went on with Clarko and how that finished at Hawthorn had a big impact on Dimmer's mindset. He doesn't want the same thing going through the Richmond Football Club. He loves that club. He did so much for him. He doesn't want to walk out the door on bad terms like Clarko did at Hawthorn. So I reckon that had a fair impact. And the other thing is, maybe he just wanted different things. Maybe Richmond are saying we need to rebuild, and he thinks we could have kept going for another premiership tilt. So there's a lot of things that behind the scenes would have been spoken about why you end up calling it quits.
What do you think?
I think Hodgie's on the money. I think it was a good time to separate. And they may well have found themselves a coach anyway. Maybe good for the club. New message. The whole place might have needed a refresh.
And lastly for me, Freo were good, but let's not get carried away. That was a response performance, and I reckon we'll find out a little bit more about their character in the next 3 weeks. Western Bulldogs this week is huge. I can't wait for that game. I don't know what to expect, but the loser's going to find it hard. I would think one of those 8-point games, and it's Carlton, and then it is Collingwood. So they were good, but I'm not getting carried away with the Dockers.
Man, you didn't have Harley Reid on your points. You made this point a few times recently. Just more than a couple. So Harley Reid, just for backtracking, for those who have been living under a rock, should not be keen in any way to go to the West Coast Eagles.
He should be sending signals that if you draft me, I will be heading home pretty quickly.
Why is that?
Pardon?
Well, the premise of the draft...
Other than the obvious
reasons?
reasons?
Are you familiar with the present?
Other than obvious reasons?
So with the draft, this might shock you, but the team that has the number 1 pick generally is struggling. Generally has sacked a coach. Generally has had a change of CEO, of president. Sometimes they are in absolute turmoil.
Yeah.
That's the idea of it.
Understand that, but there's turmoil and then there's turmoil. And the prospect of his career being derailed for who knows how long, at least 5. They're telling us it's going to get worse. So you compare his enjoyment in the game to someone like Joel Selwood or someone like Nick Dacos or someone like Will Ashcroft, who was also
very few get
in the
picked
draft.
when they're that good and go to the top clubs.
But it doesn't mean you can't be sending signals to
But
them.
Kane,
if they're considering splitting that pick, I'd be sending all sorts of hints that I do not want to go 1,800 kilometres away from home to a club that I'm not going to win any games for the first 5 years.
You're assuming...
I reckon they'll win one within 5.
Well, that was tongue-in-cheek. They're not going to win many.
Yeah, listen, you were a young player once.
Yep.
Right? These guys have pride in performance. They have a confidence in them that they want to be part of the solution, part of the answer. You're assuming that Harley has got a defeated strategy. He might go there thinking, I'm going to be part of the rebirth of this famous football club.
I'm just asking you, where would you rather go? Would you rather go to West Coast?
He doesn't get a choice, Kane.
Well, he does in the draft.
If you're a young kid and you're going into the draft, you just want to get drafted. You're not very, very few kids will be going to get picking and choosing on where they want. He's probably looking back, going, look at that West Coast team. I could get straight into the midfield. If I go to Collingwood, I might be in and out. If I go to other sides, but that West Coast team, he could put himself wherever he wanted in that side to make them a better place. So at least he gets games early to help establish. And as Sammy said, he might look at that and go, I can be the person to lift this club back to of greatness of where they were 10 years ago.
What about if you're his parents and you're listening to Chris Waterman say that about Jake, and you're watching Adam Simpson be combative, and you're watching the media coverage from the West
Australia? They said the same about Josh Kennedy when he went back there in the midst of the drugs crisis and his grandma burnt a scarf or whatever it was. He went on to become one of the greatest players West Coast ever had.
But he wouldn't be he wouldn't be the first player to do it. Chad Wingard did it when the Giants were really keen on drafting him. He said, "Don't draft me. I won't go." All words to that effect. There is another one.
There is a player.
Trent Cotchin was the same. I think he was pretty keen to stay.
And we're not saying anything nasty about Trent Cotchin, are we?
There is a recent player who, Hodge used the term pick and choose. He almost picked and he chose. And it was December 9, 2020. I was sitting in this studio on mornings and we had a young Archie Perkins on who was going into that year's draft that had been delayed because of COVID, and asked him the question about interstate clubs and the message that he had for them.
Well, he's got a career after football, newsreader.
Your voice was a bit squeakier there.
Mine was squeaky and his was gravelly. But
that would have turned me off. If I was going to select him anyway, listen to a kid say, I can't commit to your club because you're an interstate club.
Well,
I would have not selected him right
but
then. It's
worked out pretty well. Like, he's going to be a very good player for Essendon.
He actually went on to say that he wasn't on his own with those thoughts. He wasn't on his own with those thoughts, but just that he had the confidence to express them to the recruiters and list managers at the time.
Yeah, so I didn't think it was that outlandish a statement. And Horn Francis is banned on this program, but you think, how do you reckon he's feeling about getting out? Like, you reckon he's enjoying the last 11 in a row that he's won, or would you think he'd rather lose 12 in a row at North? So there's
who banned Horn Francis?
Well, it's just a bit of feedback that we speak about him too much. I think Hodge has been upset.
Is this a support directive?
No, it's not. And we go to other sports. Eli Manning did it. He didn't want to go.
You've been banned from talking about him. We're more than happy to talk about him.
Is this a support directive?
No, I'm just giving you examples. You say this is how drafts work, and I'll say there is manipulation that is possible with everything. Yep. And watching what is happening at the Eagles and the media coverage of it, I would be sending some signals that I don't want to go there. In a however subtle or however obvious you want to make it. And he may not be built like that. I get that, but good luck.
Is he the number one draft pick universally, or is the boy from Queensland who I'm hearing a lot of clubs
the Academy?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Jad Walter, I think you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
All right, Hodgie, let's move on to the things that you want to talk about. And your old club really battled without their skipper.
Yeah, it was something that... Well, Gold Coast were disappointed the week before, and that was probably a bounce-back game, just as you mentioned, with Fremantle against Essendon. But for a young list, I know I've backed the way they've gone about their building a list of getting rid of a lot of senior blokes, but I think that's what we saw on Sunday. That can be those games when you don't have your senior, you don't have your captain in there. Sometimes when you've got your back against the wall, a young list doesn't know how to stop the run on. And Gold Coast needed to perform after their game against Carlton. But I think for the Hawthorn supporters out there, even though it wasn't a proud game for them and Mitch was fairly worked up with it, I still think they're tracking in the right way.
He's on the couch tonight. Is there anything... Sorry, not on the couch. He's at the classified desk. Is there anything I need to ask your old teammate, Sammy Mitchell?
No, I reckon he'll be pretty conscious. He knows where the list at. And he knows a young team like that can have games where they just get beaten convincingly. So I don't think that it's going to phase him that much. Some of the efforts there he would have been disappointed at, but he knows the trajectory that the club's on, and I think he's happy with the way they're going.
All right, if you want to get involved in the show, you can. We've got lines available, 1300 736 736 is the Harcourt's open line, Hodgie.
I've got another one. Friday night, Kane. A young, well, not so young anymore, a fella kicked 4 goals. He's kicked 10 in 3 weeks. Eric Hipwood, have you softened on him? You went pretty hard at him early in the year about his output, him and Danaher early in the year, and they've both sort of responded reasonably well.
And rightly so. I think at the time, the performance was a bit of a concern. When he plays with that intensity, Eric Hipwood, you'd love to have that consistently. Yeah. And so too often he doesn't bring that, Hodgie. Now, I don't know what it is. You may be able to provide some insight. I did speak to the club about him, and they thought the criticism was over the top, and they were sort of alerting me to some of the stuff he does off the ball, which is hard to see when you don't watch them live a lot. But where's that intensity, and how does he bring that consistently? Because if he does that, as we saw, he's a very effective AFL footballer.
Yeah, his last 3 or 4 weeks, I think he's really stood out. Like he was a class above other forwards on Friday night, and it's because of that. It was because of his intensity, crashing packs, but it was also the ferocious way that he went at the opposition with tackling. I can't disagree that sometimes when he doesn't bring that, he does look a step behind other forwards. But he was clearly the best forward on the ground terrific on Friday night through that intensity.
They look a better side right now, Hodgie, with the extra pace.
Yeah, the Adelaide game they were really disappointed with, and then the Hawthorn, it looked like they were too stagnant. Hawthorn played football a lot quicker. They moved the ball on, they just couldn't get the line set. But I think they're a team that need to take risks with the ball. If they're playing too safe and try and go long down the line too often, it doesn't work to that forward line that are very fast, very agile, and got some really good goal kickers down there. But I think for them to be the best team they can be, the ball movement has to be on the faster side rather than the slower side.
Just a couple of players you call for Kane. Judd McVie.
Yes.
For the Demons, Pat from Doncaster's given the stat nomination. We've got Nick Vlosten, the Geelong surfer, or the Torquay surfer, who's been a dominant player for Richmond for so long. John Noble gets another one. Brandon Starcevich, I think, was a late 30s pick. That's a really good. That's an outperform.
Yep. Absolutely, it is. Hey, just wondering, has Chris Fagan got a bit of a headache to work through in the back sort of third of the season, Hodgie? Like, would he want to get Daniel Rich back into that side? Obviously, Dane Zorko's got to come back in as well, Jack Gunston, but particularly Daniel Rich, who's been a part of the furniture there for so long. Is there any guarantee that he definitely gets back?
I think if Richie's fit and playing the best football that he can, he's in that best 22. The thing that he wasn't performing at his best because of his body wouldn't allow him. He had a couple tweaks of the calf, which he needs to be fit in at the speed of the game that it's played at. He needs to be fully fit. So that's what they're doing at the moment. Both him and Gunston are going through this 2-3 week block to try and get their bodies in the best fit for, late July, early August into September.
So, Hodgie, outside of the 8 right now, we've got the Cats, the Suns, and Fremantle all on 28. We've got Richmond on 26, and then we've got the Swans and Giants on 24. Of those, who's going to make it?
I knew you were coming.
Have you got a harder question for me? if you look through, well, I didn't expect Geelong to be up there. I thought Melbourne were going to handle them, so I had them down at 24 after the weekend. I'm looking at the pressure ones there is for Essendon. Essendon's next 4 weeks. Look, Essendon have played some really good football, but their next patch, they had Fremantle over there. They got Port Adelaide. They got Adelaide. Then they come up against Geelong Bulldogs in their next month. So the one for me is if Essendon can get maybe 2 out of that, they'll definitely stay up there. But if they play the footy they did on the weekend, they might be dropping out of the 8 within about a month's time. But with the others, you'd expect you want to see more from Gold Coast. Gold Coast have got a massive weekend this weekend.
They got a massive month, Hodgie.
They do. But watching what they did against Carlton, and then showing what they could do against Hawthorn, getting Collingwood up at Metricon, or whatever they've changed it to now. Getting them up there, they need to put in a 4-quarter performance. And I'm not saying they have to win the game against Collingwood, but they've got to be consistent. They've got to be ruthless. They can't give up a quarter like they did against Carlton and give away 9 goals and 6 from centre bounce. It's big expectations on Gold Coast to put up a decent fight against Collingwood, and then hopefully they continue on for the next month as well.
They're in an invidious position, the Gold Coast. If they make the finals, or if they don't make the finals, they get easy access to 3 of the top 10 picks. If they make the finals, they can only go for 2 picks, and I think if they play prelim final, they only get 1 pick. So this is a like a seminal moment in the list build. If they could add 3 top 10 picks to that club, all local guys,
if they're that good, but certainly one of them.
We believe one of them is.
But rival clubs are pretty good at bumping up the asking price for reasons we know come the end of the year, Gerard. But
well, he has dominated the under-18s. The boy, what's his name? Jed. It's a lose-lose if you make the finals.
That's the hardest thing. They're all the expectation. But we spoke about West Coast and Reid going over to West Coast and changing that football club. If you've got 3 top 10 or 2 top 10 draft picks that you've got that that can have impact for the next 5-10 years. It is a hard one, but no, the pressure that's been on Dewey,
Yep.
they're doing everything they possibly can, and it starts this weekend against Collingwood to try and make that first final series that they've been reaching for so many years.